Everyone, it's Michelle Caruana from Play Cafe Academy, and in today's video, I want to address one of the most common questions that I get from people just starting out in this business, or really any business that requires a lot of upfront work and investment. And if you have taken any of my paid courses or workshops, you'll know that I talk about this all the time. The question that I'm going to talk about today is, should I consider taking on a business partner? Now, I have tons of feelings about this, as anyone who has gone through my paid programs knows. But the reason that I wanted to bring it up today specifically is because I actually just had a attorney, his name is Braden Drake, come into my Playmaker Society group, which is my group coaching program just for Play Cafe Academy alumni. And every month in that group, we do a guest expert training. So I bring in social media specialists, web designers, small business bookkeepers, all sorts of types of guest experts. We learned TikTok last month, but this month we had a small business attorney. His name is, again, Braden Drake, and he specializes in helping small businesses get their waivers, their contracts, their partnership agreements, all of that stuff set up so that they're operating above board and everything is, all their I's are dotted and T's are crossed in a legal sense. So he was an amazing guest expert, but we just happened to, in the course of our conversation and when he was answering the group's questions, we started talking about business partnerships. And he brought up so many amazing points and we had a really great dialogue about it. So I'm going to take a small clip of his full guest expert training that he provided to my Playmaker Society group, and I'm going to share it with you today. But before I share our conversation, I also wanted to share a couple just tips that I have about considering taking on a business partner. Now, spoiler alert, this is not something that I typically recommend, especially when it comes to a brick and mortar indoor playground, for some reasons that I'm going to get to, but I'm going to try to get through these tips quickly because I really want to share my conversation with Braden with you. But the first thing I want to really reiterate, and Braden's going to talk about this, is that entering into a business partnership is serious business. It's just as serious as creating a prenup is when you're getting married. You have to think about the possibility of divorce. So when you're thinking about taking on a business partner, you have to really craft your partnership agreement sort of like a prenup, because businesses fail. It's statistically likely that your business actually will fail. Now, of course, if you go through my Play Cafe Academy program, if you hire consultants, if you do the work, you have a much better chance of success. But just statistically speaking, 80% of small businesses fail. So if you're going to take on a business partner and you're going to, combine all of your efforts and your funds, you need to think seriously about your partnership agreement. And Braden has legal advice, but I just want to give you some things to think about before I share this conversation. But before I give you my tips, I just want to quickly remind you to subscribe to my channel if you find this video helpful. I put out a new video every single week, and if you have any questions, comments, reactions, leave a comment. There's nothing more that I love than connecting with you guys in the comments and really getting to know you guys. All right, so my first thing that I want to say is I want to give a couple pros about taking on a business partner before I get into all the messiness that can take place. So the first pro is that you can get more depth and expertise that you didn't necessarily have. So if you guys listen to my podcast, it's called the Digital Brand Envy Podcast. A couple weeks ago, I think it was episode 28, actually, I talked about the 10 questions that you should ask before you take on a business mentor. And one of the things that I talk a lot about is that you should really find someone that doesn't necessarily have the exact same strengths and exact same things to bring to the table that you do. You should look for someone instead to complement you. So if you're great at marketing, find someone that's great at finance. If you're not as creative, find someone that fills that gap for you. So it's the same kind of deal for a business partner. You shouldn't find someone that comes from the same background or same education or same experience. Just because they're your friend or your sister or brother or spouse, you should really look for somebody who has skills that can complement yours, not that directly mirror yours. Because if you have someone that has the same skills as you, it's not going to give you any additional expertise. So that isn't really going to be as beneficial of a partnership as it could be. It's better to bring people together of different skill sets so that they both can grow and so that you have a more fulfilled team. So that's the first pro of taking on a business partner. When I started my business, I was much more involved in business, finance, economics. And so I could do all the cash flow and all the numbers, but I wasn't super creative. I don't have a teaching background. So if I did get a business partner, which I did not, and I still will never recommend for this type of business, I would have probably looked for somebody that had experience in childcare or was a little bit more creative so that we could round out our business experience and expertise. So that is the first pro of taking on a business partner. Now, the second pro, which is similar, is that you could have another perspective on business decisions. So if you're thinking about offering something new, or if you're thinking of pivoting, or if you're thinking of, a particular location or a new revenue stream or something like that, you have a built-in person to kind of bounce ideas off of. Now, throughout this video, I'm going to kind of assume that we're talking about 50-50 business partners. There's all sorts of partnership agreements you can enter into. Some are 75-25, some have a different power balance. I'm just going to make it easy and assume that you're talking about a 50-50 partnership agreement. But if you're considering something different, then just tweak what I'm going to say slightly based on that. But having someone to bounce your ideas off of and brainstorm with, that can be really valuable. Now, there are other ways to do this other than a business partner. You could survey your customers. You could ask your best customers. You could ask friends, family. You could ask in parenting groups online. To me, there are other ways to do this that are going to be even more beneficial, but having someone with skin in the game can definitely help you come to a decision and give you a little bit more clarity on whether something is going to be beneficial to your business or not, because customers don't always know what goes on behind the scenes. So that is one pro of having a business partner. Now, the last pro of having a business partner is that, again, you have that built-in support system. So in addition to expertise and perspective, you also have someone on your side that really understands what you're going through. So brick and mortar business ownership especially is hard. It comes with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of personal sacrifices, and just having a support system there is going to be very helpful. So one of my favorite poems, I'll have to link to it. It was actually in our wedding vows, and it is hanging in my bedroom. But basically the poem says, you're holding the house together. I'm going to so butcher this, but basically the idea is that, in a partnership, you kind of both hold the house up together, but then eventually someone's arms are going to get tired. So when that person needs to take a rest, whether they have a family illness or their child has an issue or whatever reason they need to put their hands down, that other person can kind of keep the ceiling afloat while the other person rests. And then when that person needs some relief, the other person puts their hands back up. So, if you have personal issues or if you're going through something or something pops up, you do have somebody that has more skin in the game than an employee would to kind of give you that relief. So that is definitely a pro. Again, you could get around this by having, managers and supervisors, but some people prefer, having a business partner be that kind of that relief when they need it. So I did want to mention that. All right, now I want to get into some cons of having a business partner. Now, while I was doing research for this video, I actually Googled why do partnerships fail, because I have been behind the scenes of dozens of business partnerships, and I have not seen one work out well, to be honest, specifically in the indoor playground business space, but really any brick and mortar business. And really it comes down to a difference in fundamental values. And I just really want to quickly read what Google gave me when I Googled this, because I thought it was really good. So I'm leaning in because I don't have my glasses on. But it says, business partnerships fail because partners don't adequately define their vision and reason for existence beyond simply being a vehicle to make money. As a consequence, people often join partnerships for financial reasons, but leave because of values, career, or life goal misalignment. Now, this is something that Braden brings up in our discussion. He started a business partnership, and they all had really different ideas of the end goal, of how they were going to use what they created, how they were going to move forward, what the 5-year plan was for the business, what was important to them. And, it's 2020. Social issues are at the forefront. If you have a business partner and your values are not 100% aligned, and you have not taken the time to come up with your company core values, which, are going to be very similar to your personal core values, and you both don't have 100% buy-in on those values, it's definitely going to be a recipe for disaster. And it's very difficult to find two people, even if they're family members or best friends, that have those exact same values. So that is definitely a huge reason that business partnerships fail. A lot of it is monetary or time driven, and it's the wrong reasons to go into a business partnership, definitely. So, things like what money should be spent on, how much money partners should be paid up front, if there should be charitable donations, what they should do with extra money, how they should handle employees, things like that. A lot of that stuff causes a lot of friction in partnerships, and I don't want to see that for you. It's very, very difficult to navigate. And again, I really haven't seen it work out ever in this particular business. That's not saying that it can't. That's not saying that it doesn't work out. Just in my experience with many, many partnerships, it's just usually not a good idea for this reason in particular. All right, so the second reason is that people's talents. So when we talked about the pros that people bring different things to the table, unfortunately, a lot of times it's like comparing apples to oranges. So for example, somebody that has a lot of finance, accounting knowledge, things like that, it's requires a lot of education, a lot of expertise, a lot of software, a lot of number crunching behind the scenes and things like that. Now, if one partner is more aligned with that type of skill set and one person is more crafty and likes decorate and things like that, even though they might be spending the same amount of time doing their tasks, you can't really compare those two skill sets in terms of a monetary value. A lot of people might say one skill set is more valuable than the other, while other people might value the other, and it's just going to be comparing oranges to apples. So a lot of times when people create these partnership agreements, they say, okay, this is what I'm going to be responsible for, this is what you're going to be responsible for. But no matter what, one person always feels like they're pulling more weight, and usually it's both people, right? So usually person A and person B, say they're in a 50-50 partnership, even if they have their tasks split down the middle, I have so often seen both person A and person B feel like they're doing more, that their skills are more valuable, that they're spending more time, that they're doing more work behind the scenes. But it's often not true. Sometimes it definitely is true, but that resentment, that friction, that apples to oranges kind of comparison, it's very difficult to navigate through. A task might be very specialized and require a certification or something like that, so it might take less time, but it has a higher monetary value, because if you were to hire somebody else for that task, it would cost a lot of money. So technically that task is more valuable, but it doesn't take as much time. So say person A is doing that task, maybe it's filing taxes or something, while person B is doing something that takes a lot more time, but kind of anyone could do it. They could hire a high school student to do it. Maybe it's putting together a grocery list or something like that. So it takes more time, but it's to hire that task out would cost a lot less, so it doesn't have as much of a monetary value. That is really the stuff you kind of have to think about, and that's the kind of stuff that unfortunately creates a lot of resentment in partnerships, because then it's gets into whose time is more valuable. Are we just doing time versus time, or are we doing task value versus task value? It's very hard and it's very difficult. I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but just know that it's very difficult, and one person is always going to feel like they're doing more. Usually it's both. All right, the next con is that this is a pretty tight business model in terms of profit margin. While you can definitely make a comfortable income for your family, it's tight, and it's going to be very difficult to do that. Now, do I help business owners set up to be profitable from the very start so that they can really accelerate that path to profits? Yes, but it's still going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of grit. It's going to take a lot of elbow grease. And when you're in a partnership, you're going to be splitting everything. Let's again assume it's 50-50. You're going to be splitting all of those profits, all of that, that fruit of your labor. It's going to be split down in half. And a lot of times, when people do divide tasks, it's to save time. So the general thought process is, I'm only going to be doing 50% of the work because I have a 50-50 partner. I'm going to be able to spend the rest of my time doing something else. When really that's not the case. I rarely have seen business partnerships actually lead to any sort of reduction in the amount of time either partner spends on the business. It actually usually leads to more time, which I'll discuss in a minute. But just know that dividing profits in half in this type of business is going to be very, very difficult, and it's going to make it much more complicated, because you're going to be working very, very hard for very little return if you're splitting everything down the middle, and you're still going to be pretty much working full time. So the reason that, you're not going to be spending less time than you would, it's kind of counterintuitive because, like I said, if you think you're splitting the tasks down the middle because you have a business partner, you're going to make up for that time in other ways. So the last con that I have before I get into my conversation with Braden is that having a business partnership really complicates all decision-making processes. So you're going to have to spend so much time communicating and meeting and brainstorming and debating whether or not something is good. So say you have a really exciting idea. Say you already own an indoor playground and you want to start offering mobile events. That's just on the top of my mind because I just launched my new mobile event business course. But say you have this really great idea, you thought it through, you can't just act on it. You can't just throw the sales page out there and start getting bookings. You can't be as agile with your pivots and your business decisions. You have to go through a whole process. You have to talk to them. You have to, give your side. You have to listen to their side. You have to make tweaks, improvements. You have to come to a decision. In some more complicated business partnership agreements, there's actually like a process you have to go through. There has to be a vote. There has to be some sort of presentation. There has to be some sort of paperwork in place. It can get really complicated, and it can definitely lead to a lot of time being spent on this decision-making process. So if you're kind of catching my drift, that's where you're really going to see, you might even be spending even more time on your business when you have a business partner because you can't be as agile. You can't make these quick decisions. Every decision, major decision is going to have to really be thought through. And in your first couple of years of a brick and mortar business, you're going to be pivoting a lot. You're going to be making a lot of changes. You're going to be trying new stuff, experimenting, and having this difficult and convoluted decision-making process will definitely hold you back. All right, so I gave my 2 cents. Now I want to share the conversation that I had with Braden. And again, this is a small clip from the training that he gave to my Playmaker Society group. But if you would like the full training, just go to playcafeacademy.com. The course is actually closed right now because I'm making some improvements to the program. I'm adding some COVID-19 updates. I'm adding diversity training. So if you go to playcafeacademy.com and hit buy, it will actually take you to a wait list if you're watching this when this video gets released in June of 2020. But get on the wait list. The doors will be open again so soon, and I'm so excited for the program improvements. So sign up for Play Cafe Academy, choose the Playmaker Society upgrade, and you can unlock Braden's full training plus all of the other guest expert trainings that I have ready and waiting for you. All right, here is my conversation about partnerships with attorney Braden Drake. One of the most common questions I get from people that are looking to have a business partner, which I personally don't recommend, but a lot of people still want to go forward with it. And I know that there are other legal implications that you have to consider when forming a partnership. So what does that process look like from a high level?
Yeah, partnerships are kind of a beast. I'll tell people, like, you should never have a casual conversation and be like, oh, we'd make a really good team, and then just like start providing services together. Like, it needs to be a lengthy, well thought out conversation. You need to consider, are you going to be 50-50 partners in the business? Like, maybe one of you has graphic design experience and marketing, and one of you is going to do the operations. Well, have you considered that the person doing operations is probably going to be doing 80% of the work? And are you still going to be 50-50 partners? You're going to take salary? What happens if one person wants to leave? Will you have to buy them out? There are all these kind of considerations. And I do help students who are in partnerships, but if you're just starting out, it's well worth the time, money, and energy to consult an attorney to figure out what things need to go in your partnership agreement, which is a legal document, to start to consider all of those things.
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of people go into partnerships almost thinking that they're going to be saving time and saving money, but oftentimes it doesn't necessarily work out that way. But I'm glad that you mentioned that. That is one task to hire somebody for, because I've seen, many partnerships go awry because something was missed in the agreement and there wasn't like a black and white answer for them.
Yeah, I can give a couple of examples. I actually had a partnership for a little while. It was like a side project. Me and 2 friends wrote an ebook called Small Business Startup Guide. It was me, a business planner, and then a marketing expert. So we were like, oh, perfect team.
Sounds really familiar, actually.
yeah, maybe you've seen it. I mean, I think we had like 20 purchasers, so it's
Oh,
like a really wide reach. But you know, we sold this ebook for $129. That was the entire business. So I think by the time we were operating it, we made like a few $1,000s in total and split the profits. But what it came down to, and we found this out like while we were in it, one of my partners wanted it to be like its own business and to like really like take off in revenue. And then I really wanted to use it as a lead gen activity to like make it an ebook so people would buy it and then want to hire me. We had very different goals. We got along pretty well, but it was at the point where it's like, well, we have different goals for this. We'll just kind of disband the partnership. But imagine like how that would work if it was all of our primary businesses, if we didn't all have a business and that business were generating like already 6 figures in revenue. Now there's a lot higher stakes involved, and that's when partnerships can get like very sticky and tricky.
yeah, and in our world, in the brick and mortar world, it gets sticky because there's so much upfront investment. So it's not like an ebook where you can just kind of walk away. There's a lot of implications around breaking a lease, and there's lost startup costs, and there's loans and things like that. So I'm glad that you mentioned, I was hoping you would recommend hiring a lawyer, because every single time I've seen someone try to go into a partnership, the first thing their lawyer says is like, do you really want to do this? Like, I'm happy to help you, but like, do you really want to? So I'm glad that's your advice.
It's almost really like going into a partnership, your partnership agreement, in my opinion, it's a lot like entering into a prenup before marriage. Like that's how seriously it needs to be taken. I'm glad that you brought that note up though, again, because a lot of the time, since I do work with service-based businesses, I'm often thinking in the context of it's two friends who are both photographers and they both invest $500 into the business and like call it a day. My sister though owns a gym like in our hometown, physical location. So I do talk to her a lot about her legal needs. And you are right, like especially when partners' names are going on a lease, then I would say in that case, definitely go get an attorney.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully a good one who will, before you actually enter into the agreement, give all of their advice. All right, that was my conversation with Braden Drake. I am going to link his stuff in the description of this video because I think he is such a great resource for small business owners. And I am so grateful that he gave so much insight into creating a legal business for my Playmaker Society group. And again, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I put out a brand new video every single week. And if you have a suggestion of what you'd like to see next or a topic you'd like me to cover, just leave a comment. I will reply, and I usually honor all requests. So I will see you guys in the comments. I love meeting you guys there, and I will see you next week.